Who said that paradise could not become a living hell? Here, in September 2017, on the idyllic Caribbean islands, one of the worst weather disasters of the 21st century struck. Irma. This hurricane of extraordinary intensity ravaged 9 territories, claiming 134 lives and injuring more than 1,000 people.
On hurle, on a peur, on pleure, on se sent totalement impuissant.
It was like something out of a horror movie. It was like some apocalyptic scene where cars are just streaming north trying to get out.
Je demande aux habitants de ne sortir sous aucun prétexte.
Why was it not possible to forecast such a violent hurricane?
Personne n'a conscience de la force de l'ouragan qui s'apprête à nous toucher à ce moment-là. Personne.
Irma is at the top of the scale in terms of one of the strongest hurricanes in history.
Et là, on a un phénomène complètement exceptionnel. Donc vous imaginez le niveau d'inquiétude qu'il peut y avoir.
To gain a better understanding of this deadly menace, we will talk to meteorologists and aerodynamic engineers and enter the heart of the hurricane itself in a U.S. Air Force aircraft.
Le vent forme en fait à l'arrière un vortex, un tourbillon, et cette dépression en fait est plus destructrice que la surpression que vous avez devant.
On arrive à des niveaux de destruction qui peuvent être absolument phénoménaux.
Most importantly, we will meet the people who experienced the phenomenon firsthand. People who faced wind speeds of 300 kilometers per hour, winds as fast as a high-speed train.
C'est fort, quoi, c'est énorme. Les toilettes, avec la pression, elles explosent, le toit se décroche, les tôles partent, c'est la panique, quoi.
Une tôle à 250 km/h, c'est une lame de rasoir. Un coco sec, c'est un boulet de canon. Une pierre à 300 km/h, c'est une balle de fusil.
This is the story of a wild monster, from formation to extinction. The story of Hurricane Irma, a disaster out of control. August 26, 2017. Welcome to the French island of St. Martin's, in the Caribbean. An island of only 87 square kilometers, cut off from the rest of the world. It is an autonomous territory with its own power plant and even boasts a desalination plant producing drinking water. St. Martin's tropical climate is the stuff of dreams, with an average temperature of 27 degrees centigrade and year-round clement weather. The only downside is the rain that comes between June and September, which is also the hurricane season. Jean-Noël de Grasse has been head of the weather unit in Martinique for 20 years. Having pioneered a weather monitoring system in the West Indies, he's familiar with these phenomena.
L'onde tropicale, c'est la perturbation classique de notre région. Alors il y en a beaucoup, il y en a quasiment tous les 3-4 jours, il y en a 60, 70 par an.
In St. Martin and throughout the Caribbean, people are used to the hurricane season. But this one would prove to be particularly violent and even deadly. Tuesday, August 29, 2017. While in the Caribbean, the weather was good. 4,000 kilometers away, off the coast of West Africa, a worrying phenomenon was developing: a tropical wave. This is a hurricane in its early stages. Tropical waves form when the clouds of the monsoon leave the continent and feed on evaporation from the oceans. Hurricane expert Michael Brennan studies these phenomena at the National Hurricane Center in Miami. Hour after hour, he witnessed the tropical wave growing larger.
Well, we first noticed the tropical wave that formed Irma that came off the coast of Africa in late August. And so that we were able to highlight the fact that it was likely to go ahead and become a tropical depression and then tropical storm over the far eastern Atlantic Ocean by late August.
Michael Brennan and his counterparts were right. Thursday, August 31st, 2 days after its formation, the tropical wave had turned into a tropical storm, the second stage in the formation of a hurricane. Now a pattern was emerging. Clouds and winds formed what experts refer to as a heat engine, a gigantic climatic system in the form of a spiral, where the warm air of the sea clashes with the cold air of the atmosphere. If it grows, the phenomenon might be particularly destructive. The threat is thus taken seriously and even bears a name.
Le système est baptisé Irma, d'accord, la 9e tempête tropicale de la saison sur l'Atlantique. Et cette tempête va continuer de s'intensifier, mais elle est encore à 3000 km de l'arc antillais. Néanmoins, toutes les prévisions de tous les modèles qui sont utilisés par les prévisionnistes la font venir menacer le nord des Petites Antilles dans les 5-6 jours qui viennent.
A climate monster was forming in the Atlantic, but no one seemed aware of the gravity of the situation, and no alerts were issued. On America's east coast, the weather report described Irma as a tropical storm.
Good Wednesday afternoon. Brand new tropical storm developed as of the 11 a.m. advisory from the National Hurricane Center. This is an area we're watching for about a day now and showing some pretty good development and looking pretty healthy. So it's now named Irma with winds of 50 miles per hour. And it's going to strengthen rather quickly as it's moving into an area that's not really going to impede it from strengthening much further.
Like everyone else in St. Martin, Marion Rowland was informed of the possible arrival of Irma. She was anything but worried.
Au début, tempête tropicale, non, ça nous fait pas peur parce qu'on sait que c'est un peu d'eau, un peu de vent, on a l'habitude, ça arrive souvent.
Cette tempête tropicale, à ce moment donné, on sait qu'elle va concerner plus ou moins les Antilles françaises. Donc on ne sait pas si c'est la Martinique, la Guadeloupe ou Saint-Martin, mais on sait qu'elle va passer dans notre zone. Donc on commence à faire des courses, l'eau, les produits de première nécessité, mais sans affolement, vraiment sans affolement. Parce que c'est dans le cycle des choses ici aux Antilles. On sait que qu'il y a des cyclones qui peuvent nous concerner.
Irma continued to grow without causing the population any alarm. But it was the calm before the storm. Friday, September 1st, 5 days before Irma's arrival. Meteorologists observed that the weather event was still increasing in intensity. In just 24 hours, the danger had risen steeply. Storm Irma had just attained hurricane status. This is the ultimate stage, the most powerful weather event. Inside the heat engine, a central column called the eye forms. Around it, winds swirl at 120 kilometers per hour. Most worryingly in this case, that speed was still increasing. Irma had already risen halfway up the 5-stage hurricane scale.
It went from a tropical depression to a hurricane in just about a day, which is a very fast rate, and then it didn't stop. It went to then a Category 3 hurricane on the scale in about another day. So 2 days after it was just a weak system, it was then a Category 3 hurricane, and that's when we became concerned that this could be a significant storm for the northeastern Caribbean islands.
The monster was closing in. With an average speed of 20 to 30 kilometers per hour, heading straight towards the Caribbean archipelago, Irma was now headline news.
L'ouragan Irma s'est renforcé cet après-midi. Actuellement ouragan de classe 4. Il abordera l'arc antillais à partir de demain soir. Les vents soutenus près du centre sont maintenant de 215 km/h avec des rafales importantes.
No sooner had this news been broadcast than the paradise became a bunker. In St. Martin, people knew that they would be housebound once Irma arrived. Anyone venturing outside would risk being killed by flying debris. Anne-Jacques runs a hotel in St. Martin. By the time she became aware of the danger, she had little time left to prepare.
J'achète des lampes, tout ce que je peux trouver, et puis à l'hôtel, avec l'équipe de l'hôtel, on range tout, on met tout le mobilier de la piscine, les transats, tout le mobilier de l'espace petit déjeuner, tout ça. On rentre tout dans des chambres, bien à l'abri.
Ah bah alors là, c'est l'orgie sur l'île. On fait tous les dernières courses. Donc là, les supermarchés se vident au fur et à mesure. On est tous là à chercher des piles, à chercher des bidons pour pouvoir faire des réserves d'eau, des radios pour pouvoir suivre la communication, parce que bien évidemment, après, on s'attendait à ne plus avoir d'électricité, plus de télé, plus rien. Donc pouvoir suivre les nouvelles au fur et à mesure. L'avant-cyclone, c'est la course.
Tension was mounting in St. Martin because many buildings were not built to survive hurricanes. Architect Yves Page specializes in hurricane-resistant buildings. He knew that the structures in the West Indies would not withstand the predicted wind speeds of Irma.
Aux Antilles, effectivement, une grande partie des constructions est aux marges de la légalité. Et du coup, les mécanismes qui sont mis en place en France pour contrôler la solidité des constructions ne sont pas forcément suivis des faits certains territoires, comme aux Antilles et ailleurs.
The countdown had begun, and there was no time to lose. The most recent forecasts had Irma hitting the southeast Caribbean in less than 48 hours. Meteorologists, though, were becoming increasingly uncertain. They needed information to complement that provided by satellites. Trajectory, wind speed. To gain a better understanding of Irma, they needed to go into the very heart of the hurricane. So the U.S. Air Force was called in. In the region, only the U.S. military was capable of such a mission.
I've flown enough of them to know you don't know what you got until you get into it.
We can save lives by, first and foremost, putting up understanding where the storm is going to go and setting up with our emergency management the right evacuation orders. So we know that our responsibility here is significant, that we want to try to get this prediction as right as possible because people do depend upon it. People do need this information to know how to respond when a storm is approaching.
After an hour of flight, the pilots reached the eye wall of the hurricane. From this point on, extreme vigilance was required. The aircraft had to hold firm amid the wind and deluge while gathering all the necessary data.
The aircraft measures the wind speed and direction at the level at which it's flying, which in a hurricane is about 10,000 feet or about 3 kilometers above the 3 to 4 kilometers above the ground. It also measures the wind at the ocean surface. It has an instrument on there called the step frequency microwave radiometer that measures wind speed right at the ocean surface. That gives us an idea of what's going on down at the ground. We also can drop sondes, which are like packages with meteorological instruments on them with a parachute that fall down through the storm. They measure wind speed, direction, temperature, moisture, and pressure.
Crossing Irma, the aircraft flies through the eye of the hurricane, a column 15 kilometers high and 50 kilometers wide. The sky there is a perfect blue, with no wind. Straight ahead, though, in the eye wall of the hurricane, the elements have gone wild. The initial readings taken from the heart of the hurricane caused a chill.
We have a scale, and we have a Category 5. We don't have an upper bound. We say if the winds are greater than 156 miles per hour, it's a Category 5 hurricane. Irma had winds of 185 miles per hour. So, you know, it was significantly above the line of a Category 5. There's no way for us to measure stronger than that because that's the top of the scale, but we do recognize that these winds were very much extreme. And we haven't concluded that analysis, but what we're finding is that Irma is at the top of the scale in terms of one of the strongest hurricanes in history.
Là, on est dans un phénomène complètement exceptionnel. C'est du jamais vu sur les petites Antilles. Donc vous imaginez le niveau d'inquiétude qu'il peut y avoir parce qu'on ne maîtrise pas forcément le type d'impact que ça peut donner. On sait que ça sera catastrophique là où il va atterrir. Et là, il faut prendre les mesures qui correspondent à une catastrophe potentielle.
Tuesday, September 5th, 6 a.m., one day before the expected arrival of Irma. On the island of St. Martin, nothing in the sky suggested that a hurricane was only 600 kilometers away. Thomas Thurar, a journalist from Martinique, was in St. Martin to report on the hurricane.
Ce qui est surprenant, en fait, c'est que pendant toute la journée, il a fait grand beau. Mais du soleil, on avait envie de plonger et tout ça, d'aller se baigner, on se disait « Ah, c'est super, on va passer une belle journée », mais en fait, non.
On the radio, the warnings were increasing.
La préfecture rapporte des vents extrêmement violents. Elle demande aux habitants de ne sortir sous aucun prétexte.
8 a.m. There was now no doubt about it. Hurricane Irma was going to hit St. Martin with full force. The authorities ordered large-scale evacuations. All those living on the coast or in precarious homes had to leave. Zalisa is a Red Cross nurse on the island. She knows the population of St. Martin very well.
On redoute pour la population, une nouvelle fois, qui sont dans des quartiers précaires. Il y en a plein, il y en a beaucoup. C'est la population avec laquelle on travaille à l'année. Donc on sait très bien dans quoi ces personnes vivent. Et on sait très bien que des vents de 200-300 km/h, tout va s'en aller. Les gens qui sont en bord de mer, la mer va monter, rentrer dans les habitations. Il n'y a pas d'étage. La crainte est énorme pour beaucoup de personnes.
Others sought to protect their homes any way they could.
Les gens s'activent, la population s'active à solidifier leur maison, aller chercher des vivres.
Là, je dis, là, les gens, ils sont inquiets. Parce qu'il y avait énormément de personnes en caisse qui achetaient des contreplaqués, des clous, des choses de toutes sortes, quoi. Surtout des planches pour pouvoir protéger leur maison, en fait, leurs fenêtres, etc.
10 a.m. All eyes were on the desalination plant. Faced with an extreme and imminent risk, the prefecture decided to shut down water production to prevent sand stirred up by the cyclonic swell from being sucked into the plant's pumps. Damage to the drinking water plant would deprive the whole island of a vital resource. "5 p.m. The island was placed on violet alert, the highest level. Residents were forbidden to go outside onto the streets. Many hours of anguish were now beginning.
Quand on voit les bulletins météo et tout ça, on sait que ça va être un très gros cyclone. On sait. Donc là, la peur monte en fait parce que c'est du sérieux, quoi.
Et là, c'est le pire, parce qu'on sait qu'on n'a plus que quelques heures qui nous rapprochent du cyclone. On a l'impression que la Terre s'arrête de vivre. On a l'impression que c'est l'apocalypse qui arrive, le ciel devient violet, c'est fluorescent. On n'entend plus un bruit d'oiseau, plus une feuille qui bouge dans les arbres. Ça rajoute un stress parce que c'est pas normal. Et là, c'est vraiment le calme avant la tempête.
Thinking they were prepared for the worst, residents underestimated the threat.
Personne, vraiment, personne n'a conscience de l'importance, de la force de l'ouragan qui s'apprête à nous toucher à ce moment-là. Personne.
« 6 p.m., Irma was coming. At a speed of 20 kilometers per hour, the hurricane was expected to hit the island in 9 hours' time. But another phenomenon heralded the hurricane's arrival: the cyclonic swell. Huge waves driven by the hurricane were breaking on the coast. Thomas Thurar, present on the beach of Orient Bay, was one of the first to witness the phenomenon.
On on a fait des images au loin et là on voyait déjà la houle. Et c'est là qu'on s'est dit, ça arrive. Irma est en train d'arriver parce qu'il y a du mouvement de mer, la houle est importante. Au loin, on voyait vraiment que la houle était de plus en plus importante.
Bien avant le mur de l'œil, il y a déjà une mer complètement démontée qui commence à assaillir les côtes. On a des vagues de 8, 10, 12 mètres, mais c'est surtout la puissance de ces vagues qui est importante. Donc il y a des vagues qui viennent de loin, qui sont rejointes par des vagues qui sont levées par le vent, et ça c'est très destructeur.
While the winds had yet to strike, on top of the huge waves, another danger loomed. In a hurricane, air moves quickly from inside to out, forming a gigantic wind tunnel above the ocean. As a result, all around the hurricane, the water levels rise inexorably.
C'est un petit peu comme un tsunami. C'est-à-dire que ce ne sont pas des vagues, c'est le niveau de la mer qui monte. Alors, par différence de pression qu'il y a entre le cœur de l'ouragan et son environnement, mais aussi parce que les vents poussent de l'eau et cette eau, elle vient s'accumuler dans le fond des baies.
And when that water reaches the coast, it pushes inland and floods areas that normally don't see ocean water or seawater.
It's hard to know how much early damage the cyclonic swell caused, but it was nothing compared to what the hurricane was about to inflict. Wednesday, September 6th, 3 a.m. The howling winds began to blow across St. Martin. Irma had arrived. Marion Rowland was hiding in her home.
Petit à petit, ça commençait à souffler de plus en plus fort et les vitres commençaient à vibrer. Les murs craquent, le toit craque, c'est assez impressionnant. On entendait les projectiles dehors tout casser, les toits s'arracher.
Such was the force, the weather stations could not keep up.
Là, ça va être des conditions dantesques. C'est des vents mesurés localement par des stations de mesure à 320 km/h de rafale. Les capteurs ont lâché après, il y a sûrement eu plus que ça à certains endroits.
Ça vient au fur et à mesure et après, ça prend une intensité folle. C'est assourdissant.
The idyllic image of the Caribbean had become the apocalypse. Added to these winds of unprecedented violence, which were literally blowing down buildings, was another destructive force, the effect of pressure depression. Striking the facade, the wind exerts a powerful pressure. But moving around the building, an opposite effect is created, a depression, causing suction at the rear, making it easier to tear the house away.
Le vent contourne, mais il forme en fait à l'arrière, on va dire un vortex, un tourbillon. Et ce tourbillon, en fait, c'est une dépression. Et cette dépression, en fait, paradoxalement, par rapport à ce que le sens commun imagine, c'est la dépression qui est plus destructrice que la surpression que vous avez devant.
Ça pousse d'un côté, ça tire de l'autre, grosso modo. Et ça, avec des vitesses de vent assez extrêmes, du coup des pressions assez extrêmes, on arrive à des niveaux de destruction qui peuvent être absolument phénoménaux.
5 a.m. For 2 hours, the monster had been blowing full force. All people could do was hunker down and cross their fingers.
C'est fort, quoi, c'est énorme. Quelque chose d'horrible, c'est que les toilettes, avec la pression, elles explosent, le toit se décroche, les tôles partent, le T1 avec, et qu'on a un grand trou dans le toit, là, c'est la panique, quoi.
On hurle, on a peur, on pleure, et puis on se disait à chaque rafale, oui, qu'on allait se faire aspirer avec le reste de la salle de bain. On avait déjà plus de toit, plus de rien, il nous restait juste le plafond en placo, quoi. On se sent totalement impuissant. Il y a tout qui vole autour, il y a tout qui se désintègre, le bruit. Il y avait une telle pression basse que c'est comme si vous montiez dans un avion quand il y a des pressurisations, que vous avez mal aux oreilles. À chaque rafale, toutes les secondes, vous teniez les oreilles tellement vous aviez mal. On n'a jamais vécu un cyclone pareil.
Houses, boats, trees, cars, nothing could withstand the hurricane. Having destroyed everything in its path, the wind turned the airborne debris into weapons of mass destruction.
Tout ce qui est des matériaux qui traînent un petit peu autour des constructions, comme des pierres, des roches, des morceaux de bois, effectivement, devient projectile. Et ces éléments-là, ils vont devenir très dangereux. Une tôle à 250 km/h, c'est une lame de rasoir. Un coco sec, c'est un boulet de canon. Une pierre à 300 km/h, c'est une balle de fusil.
For 5 hours, Irma ravaged the small French Caribbean island. In the early morning, the island's residents had a chance to assess the damage.
L'île est dévastée, l'île. L'île est dévastée, on ne reconnaît plus rien.
More seriously, the island had no more drinking water. The desalination plant, so vital to this remote island, was severely damaged by the hurricane. David Poinard is an expert in drinking water. He was sent to St. Martin right after the hurricane to repair the plant.
Sur l'usine de dessalement, on s'est rendu compte que le vent avait complètement soufflé les murs. Le hangar, le toit qui abrite l'usine a été soufflé et en même temps une grande quantité d'eau de mer s'est déversée sur l'usine. Elle est complètement inopérante, il y a des débris de partout, ce qui est assez dramatique pour une usine.
Nobody knew how long it would be before the plant could produce drinking water. A few hours after Irma, the early reports announced that 95% of the island had suffered. Given the scale of the damage, panic gripped the rest of the region as Irma continued her devastating journey. September 5th, 12 o'clock. Irma continued heading west. It would soon reach the Dominican Republic, Haiti, and Cuba, before heading north towards the Florida Keys. In the USA, the threat was taken very seriously. The Keys had over 80,000 residents, along with thousands of tourists.
Hurricane Irma is barreling towards the Caribbean with winds reaching 180 miles per hour. The Category 5 storm has prompted hurricane warnings in Puerto Rico and the U.S. Virgin Islands. Florida is under a state of emergency.
The local authorities immediately issued an evacuation order. David Obale is a reporter at the Miami Herald. This veteran of hurricanes was covering Irma from late August.
As the storm starts getting closer to Florida, the emergency management officials start springing into action. So they start going into they start declaring states of emergency. That allows funding and for resources to start being allocated throughout the county.
Well, we're getting ready for the possibility of a hurricane here locally, certainly for much of the Florida Keys and the Florida Peninsula were at risk, and we saw that Irma was going to become a bigger storm as it began to turn northward with a very large wind field. So regardless of where the exact center of Irma tracked across Florida, either on the west coast, east coast, up the peninsula, there was going to be a huge area of sustained tropical storm force winds, very strong wind gusts. So we were looking at a very impactful event for a very, very large number of people.
For 2 days, Irma ran alongside Puerto Rico, the Dominican Republic, and Haiti. Although moving around the edges of the islands, the monster caused torrential rains and considerable damage. as was the case here on the island of Antigua, here in Cuba, and here in Puerto Rico.
Kills a lot of people in tropical cyclones, probably more than wind generally. The rain can cause flooding, it can cause mudslides, flash flooding on small creeks and streams, it can cause major river flooding, and that the power of the water can be very intense. It can destroy buildings, it can obviously cause people to drown.
Cutting off water, electricity, and communications from Puerto Rico to Haiti, Irma wreaked havoc and claimed 13 lives. Friday, September 8th. Irma had been devastating the Caribbean for 72 hours with wind speeds of between 200 and 300 kilometers per hour, a record for the region.
Irma is certainly one for the record books. It was tied for its longest duration of Category 5 at over 3 days of Category 5 intensity, which is very unusual.
As in any worst-case scenario, Irma was no longer the only threat. For a few hours, meteorologists had been monitoring the formation of another hurricane, also from Africa. Its name was Jose. Already a Category 4, it was due to hit the Caribbean within 3 days. The question was, would Jose strike the French island of Saint Martin, already reeling from Irma?
On a l'impression qu'il suit quasiment la même trajectoire qu'Irma. La menace d'un ouragan majeur avec des vents de 250 km/h est réelle pour les îles du Nord. On ne peut pas prendre le risque d'une surcrise, c'est-à-dire d'envoyer des secours, même si c'est urgent, mais de les envoyer dans des conditions où tout a été ravagé sur les îles et où ils peuvent se mettre en danger parce qu'un autre ouragan approche.
Especially given the way Irma had sapped the people of Saint Martin. With no telephone or internet, by word of mouth, the islanders heard about the imminent arrival of Jose.
On vient d'avoir Irma. Il y a une très grande partie de la population qui n'a plus de toit. Et on annonce donc un cyclone José avec d'importantes pluies.
Journalist Thomas Thurar witnessed the disarray among the population.
Se retaper à un autre cyclone de cette amplitude, c'était trop, je pense. Je pense qu'ils étaient à bout parce que déjà ils avaient du mal à manger, à boire convenablement, et se dire qu'il y avait encore un autre qui arrivait, je pense que c'était un autre de trop. Ouais.
Worse, there was still no drinking water, and José's imminent arrival forced technicians to abandon repair work on the desalination plant.
On commence à peine à sortir la tête de l'eau, à avoir mis en place notre système logistique. Et là, on nous dit, attention, vous avez José qui arrive, donc on va devoir tout remettre quasiment à plat. Donc c'est pour ça que même la partie traitement de l'eau, moi, je donne l'ordre de la démonter pour la remettre, pour éviter qu'elle soit submergée, parce qu'elle est mise très proche du littoral.
Saturday, September 9th, 3 days after Irma had struck Saint Martin. The island was now bracing itself for the arrival of Jose. Meanwhile, in Florida, the big concern was still Irma. No one knew where the hurricane would strike.
Le gros problème dans les trajectoires d'ouragan, c'est quand justement il y a un virage qui est prévu vers le nord, parce qu'on voit bien que, en fonction de à quel moment il va vraiment tourner, et surtout de combien de degrés, ça change tout pour les zones qui vont être impactées. Et donc là, la problématique, quand Irma est en train de longer les côtes cubaines, c'est à quel moment il va tourner vers la Floride. La plupart des prévisions le faisaient tourner assez tôt et donc venir avoir en ligne de mire la côte est, et donc Miami particulièrement.
Because we know this powerful storm is coming, but it could move so many different ways. It could veer right, it could keep going left, it could miss us entirely, or it could just completely, barrel over us and destroy us. So I think there was a real just sense of sheer agony for people because it just seemed to be taking forever.
Reacting to weather reports, the local authorities feared massive flooding from the tidal surge. Florida is a flat state, very exposed to such phenomena. So for the first time ever in Florida, the authorities made the radical decision to evacuate 6 million people.
It was like something out of a horror movie. It was like some apocalyptic scene where cars are just streaming north trying to get out. There's no gas anywhere to be had. You could turn on the TV and see images of the supermarkets completely out of water. I mean, there was just no water to be had anywhere. The lines at the gas stations were out of control. People are fighting over gas. You know, it's sort of this pandemonium that people are going through because they realize, you know, it's going to be very, very dangerous, and we're probably in for a very, very tough time with this hurricane.
Those in Florida who opted to stay were witnessing a rare phenomenon. While ordinarily there is no tide, here the sea had retreated by a kilometer. What happens is the air and Atlantic seawater are sucked into the eye of the hurricane. This suction effect pulls the sea away from the coast.
Ahead of the storm, the winds are blowing the water away from the shore, so it actually pulls water out of like bays and harbors. This happened near the Naples area in Florida, where the water was basically pulled out to sea and exposed dry land underneath areas that are normally covered by water. And then the danger is that people go out and might look at that or start to go down into it. And then as the storm goes by, the water will rush back in as it's pulled in by the, say in this case, the westerly winds. And then the storm surge comes in on the backside of the storm. So that can create a very dangerous situation.
Sunday, September 10th, 8 a.m. Driven by Irma's 225-kilometer-per-hour winds, the tides flooded the American coastline.
Ce sont des vagues de 10-12 mètres qui sont arrivées, qui ont déferlé sur ce qu'on appelle le point le plus sud des États-Unis, hein, à Key West, et qui ont énormément endommagé ces îles avant d'aller sur la côte ouest de la Floride.
Essentially a big push of ocean water that comes in and floods areas where there may be houses, there may be infrastructure. It can also penetrate very far inland up bays and rivers. And in areas like the west coast of Florida, where the ground is relatively flat for a long way as you go inland, the storm surge can penetrate 5 or 10 miles inland from the coastline.
It was 1 p.m. in Florida. 3 days after landing in St. Martin, the hurricane reached the U.S. coast and wreaked havoc.
Easily. Now it's getting so strong. I'm leaning my entire body again.
Boats hurled miles inland, mobile homes pulverized, trees and traffic signs uprooted. Here too, the damage was spectacular.
For me, it sounds like a war zone outside because the wind is really kicking up. You can start hearing things hitting the building. You can just look out the window and see stuff flying around. And I think there's a heightened fear when it's in the dark, because then at some point you're looking out and you no longer see things, but you can hear it. So it's very, very scary to kind of just hear this howling wind. It really does sound like a monster is outside.
When the core approached Florida, and it hit the Florida Keys specifically, the winds stayed very strong and they were sustained for a period of time. So maybe 30 minutes to an hour in the Florida Keys, we saw very intense winds, winds that could be near Category 4 strength there. And Category 4 strength winds in the Florida Keys was knocking down structures, was blowing out windows in these structures, was causing significant structural damage to roofs and homes and businesses, all in the Florida Keys, and even here in South Florida as well. Meanwhile, while the winds are blowing, at the same time, we have very heavy rain falling, piling up the water just from the heavy rain, and the ocean water is coming in to areas where we live.
Inundated by the storm surges and cyclonic swell, constructions are then directly attacked by seawater, causing undermining. The powerful cyclonic swell erodes the foundations. Acting like a rake, the waves progressively advance beneath the structures, destabilizing the constructions.
Et au bout d'un moment, si un trou est trop important, le bâtiment peut éventuellement s'affaisser, voire basculer complètement dans un trou, voire se casser en deux en fait.
While in Florida, more than 6 million people were without power, the storm continued on its northwest trajectory. But the nightmare was ending. As it moved over land, Irma began to lose intensity. After causing 90 deaths in the United States, the hurricane ended its journey on September 12th in Alabama.
Il n'est plus alimenté par la chaleur de l'océan. Quand il n'est plus alimenté, il perd de l'intensité en termes de vent, en termes de variation de pression. Par contre, il doit déverser toute son énergie sous forme de pluie. Donc c'est un phénomène qui s'affaiblit en intensité, mais qui donne des pluies diluviennes.
In St. Martin, with everyone dreading the arrival of Jose, the successor of Irma, the reports from the radar screens were relatively good. Jose was missing the island and would cause only heavy rain.
Bonne nouvelle, l'ouragan José est bien devenu un ouragan majeur, qu'il est passé à quelques dizaines de kilomètres de l'arc entier. Vous voyez, ça s'est joué à pas grand-chose, mais heureusement parce que là, ça aurait été vraiment une deuxième grosse catastrophe.
With gusts measured at 360 kilometers per hour, Hurricane Irma is categorized as one of the most powerful ever recorded in the North Atlantic. Over a period of 10 days, in the 9 territories crossed, Irma destroyed everything in its path. The devastation was staggering. The cost of damage was estimated at more than 120 billion euros in the Caribbean alone.
This looked like some hand of God had just gone through and completely just brushed us over a trailer park. And so everything was just down and toppled like they were toys. There were certain homes where just the roofs were gone, windows were blown out.
St. Martin looked as if a bomb had hit it, with sand-filled streets, uprooted trees, cars wedged into buildings, or hurled miles and buildings destroyed.
La plupart des infrastructures publiques sont détruites, qu'il s'agisse des écoles, des établissements publics ou de l'hôpital. Tout est détruit, l'aéroport est partiellement détruit, on ne peut pas arriver. La mer est encore trop agitée pour qu'on puisse accéder par bateau, ce qui complique bien évidemment l'arrivée de renforts extérieurs sur l'île de Saint-Martin et de Saint-Barthélemy.
The island's remoteness made the impact of the damage all the greater. With the desalination plant out of service, the entire population was without water. Technicians worked day and night to get it up and running again.
C'est une course contre la montre pour pouvoir alimenter, produire de l'eau potable, alimenter la population et aussi éviter tout risque lié à la santé, à l'hygiène et à la santé, tout le risque d'épidémie.
It took weeks before the plant was operational again. But while the hell seemed to be over, a barely credible phenomenon emerged from the Atlantic, a third hurricane. After Irma and Jose, Maria, with her 200 kilometers per hour winds, was heading for land.
Il a un potentiel de pluie en son sein qui est très important et quand il arrive sur les côtes de Porto Rico, il arrive sur une zone de relief assez important et c'est des trompes d'eau qui se déversent. On a des mesures qu'on n'a quasiment jamais vues dans le monde. On est à des 1000 mm, c'est-à-dire des quantités incroyables qui sont tombées en quelques heures. Et ces quantités d'eau vont donner des conséquences catastrophiques. Alors, il y a un barrage qui a commencé à se fissurer. Il y a 70 000, 80 000 personnes qui ont dû être évacuées. Donc, grosse catastrophe, bien sûr, sociétale. Et surtout aussi, plus d'énergie pour une grande partie de la population.
3 major hurricanes in 1 month. It's unheard of in the history of this region.
Some years we have a very strong storm, but one strong storm. 2017 was unique to the fact that we didn't have just one strong storm. We had a few. We had Irma, then we also had Maria later that hit Puerto Rico, also a Category 5 hurricane. And then we had Harvey, a Category 4 hurricane. So I think what's significant about this is that this whole season was very busy, not just one storm, but multiple storms of very high intensity.
a dark sequence that can be attributed to the warming of the oceans that fuel hurricanes.
Les effets du changement climatique sont une réalité sur les petites Antilles. Il ne s'agit pas de nier quoi que ce soit. Les bases de données sur les températures nous le montrent très clairement. C'est quasiment 1/4 de degré d'augmentation par décennie, ce qui est énorme. C'est plus que la moyenne mondiale. On prévoit qu'il y ait davantage de phénomènes intenses, pas forcément plus de cyclones, pas forcément plus d'ouragans, mais plus d'ouragans intenses, et notamment sur des régions où ce n'était pas forcément habituel.
The reconstruction work is not yet complete. A number of questions arise. How to prevent such tragedies from reoccurring? How to protect buildings against increasingly intense hurricanes?
Alors on peut parfaitement construire un bâtiment paracyclonique qui résiste à un ouragan de catégorie 5. L'idée générale, c'est qu'il faut que les structures soient beaucoup plus résistantes, et pour atteindre cette résistance, on met plus de matière en fait. Et une matière, c'est-à-dire qu'on met plus de béton, on met un peu plus de métal, un peu plus de bois. On a des vitrages qui se rapprochent dans leur composition de vitrages blindés en fait. C'est-à-dire qu'on met en place différentes couches de verre et avec des films en plastique qui sont collés entre les différentes couches de verre, et c'est ça qui donne la résistance au vitrage.
Il a été démontré que dans des essais de soufflerie, avec une pente bien précise, on réduit les effets du vent. Par exemple, la pente qui est à 45 degrés, donc 45 degrés, voilà, vous avez un phénomène de tremplin du vent. Ça veut dire que le vent, quand il arrive dessus, c'est comme un tremplin de moto, là, vous savez, ça décolle. Et quand le vent passe de l'autre côté, les effets de succion sont limités.
Such building methods cost between 10 and 40% more than conventional constructions. There's no such thing as zero risk, but it's always possible to limit the devastation caused by hurricanes. Since Irma swept through, local politicians and building experts have pondered the issue of building regulations.
Une des pistes pour la reconstruction, c'est de se dire que tout ce qui est en bord de mer ne serait pas réservé à l'habitation. Il n'y aurait pas de risque pour les habitants s'ils devaient rester dans leur maison, quoi.
Irma could therefore shape a new Saint Martin.
Oui, on vit dans la Caraïbe. C'est une belle vie. On a un beau cadre de vie. Mais il ne faut pas oublier que ce n'est pas que les eaux turquoises et le sable blanc, qu'on a des catastrophes naturelles.
Disasters that, like Irma, can cause 134 deaths and injure more than 1,000 people. The rebuilding will take many years to complete, and many more to restore the coastline. Meanwhile, residents in the West Indies fear that global warming will produce more extreme weather phenomena, producing conditions that are out of control.